já, o kimono. Vem cá, me tira você da coisa. Você não vai gerar?
Ele está funcionando. Oi. Aqui assim, eu misturei, porque assim, com o Covid faliu a loja que estava aqui. Aí a dona falou que havia oculto aí.
Você está
nas casas casadas? Não, eu fui para as casas casadas em Laranjeira. Não, onde você. Não, a Cavide foi para lá. Você não chegou aí na Cavide, não, você entrou no cinema lá. Mas é lá, a Cavide saiu da Cobol, foi para lá. Lá agora é uma biblioteca de cinema, uma locadora e a produtora. E é tudo gratuito. Hoje em dia a gente oferece tudo de graça. Você consegue devolver para você. Não, eu consegui um espaço de graça. Porque assim, eu queria
Ô filho, ele é canhota também. Vou tirar foto e a gente passa. Tira uma
Fotinho. Foto.
Mas você continuar, já vai ser meio gordinho, a taxa de gás está o quê? Cavide. É de Carlos Vinícius. Aí o próprio mudou o Cavide. E botar o nome na mão que manda, fica bonito. O professor está ali atrás, ele só nota massinhas.
Tudo bem, que bom com vocês. Professor Thierry, vai dar uma coisa.
Um dos maiores nomes do cinema, de conhecimento do cinema mundial. Ele dirige o festival de cinema mais importante do mundo, que é o Festival de Cannes, da França, no sul da França. E ele tem uma história, que é a história que ele conta nesse livro, em que a vida dele começa exatamente no judô. E ele vê, na verdade, o judô como um instrumento muito importante para ele ter chegado no cinema. Mas como ele diz, e vocês dizem também, eu estou aprendendo, uma vez judoka, sempre judoka. E então ele continua sendo um judoka, e é para dizer para vocês o quanto é importante o que vocês fazem, agradecer ao Instituto Brito de estar aqui, de ter trazido vocês e de dizer que existe judô e existem muitas outras coisas depois, como cinema, mas o mundo é grande e vocês vão ser sempre judocas, mas vocês podem ser judocas e também olhar outros horizontes. Então, Thierry Frémaux, que veio ao Brasil para promover o livro e que está nos dando o prazer prazer de conhecer um pouco o judô brasileiro também. Que a gente ama e que talvez a gente acabe vendo menos do que precisa, mas aqui é onde a gente vê esse cinema e é onde vocês serão sempre bem-vindos, é a casa de vocês também.
Vamos receber todo mundo aqui, vários amigos, vários cineastas, pessoas do judô, do cinema. Vamos receber Thierry. Dizer que esse projeto aqui é um projeto muito legal que tem na Rocinha, um professor, Fernando Brito, que veio aqui e trouxe...
Então a nossa placa diz, a homenagem da Federação de Judô do Estado do Rio de Janeiro, ao judoca e escritor Thierry Frémaux, pela produção da obra Judoka. Parabéns.
D'habitude, au Festival de Cannes, je ne reçois pas des prix, je donne des prix.
Normalmente no Festival de Cannes eu não recebo prêmios, eu dou prêmios.
Mais aujourd'hui, je suis spécialement fier d'être ici d'abord, de votre présence. J'ai envie d'avoir un kimono.
Mas hoje eu estou especialmente orgulhoso de estar aqui, da presença de vocês, da homenagem de vocês, e eu queria também colocar um kimono hoje.
Et d'être ici, c'est exactement le sens du livre. Et ce que tu m'as dit, c'était important, c'est-à-dire, si mon histoire est l'histoire de tout le monde, alors j'aurais réussi le livre.
E para mim é muito importante estar hoje aqui, porque exatamente como eu estava falando para o Cavi, se a minha história é a história de tantos de vocês e de tantas pessoas, eu fui feliz, eu consegui sucesso no livro que eu fiz.
Et la présentation et la présence des enfants est exactement l'esprit d'être ici dans une salle d'art et essai. C'est la transmission, c'est l'éducation, c'est la préparation du futur.
E o fato de estar aqui, né, com jovens, né, com crianças, não sejam mas jovens, aqui nesse cinema, que é um cinema de arte, é exatamente o que dá sentido ao futuro, ao que pode vir.
Alors, merci beaucoup à tous de me rendre si fier. Merci pour le cadeau, parce que je pense que l'universalité des sentiments, surtout dans le monde tragique dans lequel nous vivons, est la chose que nous continuons à défendre. Et dans 20 ans, les enfants seront des petits champions et à leur tour diront le judo, c'est important.
E o que me faz ficar tão orgulhoso é saber que essa comunhão de sentimentos, essa união que me faz feliz de estar aqui também, porque vocês são o futuro.
Merci beaucoup à tous.
Ele conta que toda vez que ele para falar comigo, com todo mundo, a posição dele é de judô. C'est ça que j'ai vraiment remarqué. Bon, Bien sûr qu'il y a des judokas. Toujours comme ça. Atterrir, très bien. Mas é isso, né? Então, uma vez judoka, sempre. Exato. Uma vez judoka, sempre. A posição é sempre a mesma. Muito obrigada.
Pessoal, tem gente. Ei! Vocês sabem?
Agora a gente vai fazer uma.
Que foi tirado de Paulo Samurai e criar uma didática de aprendizado, de competição. Então é esse o movimento. Tá? Vamos lá, olha aqui, vamos tentar rápido aqui, só fazer eu termino. Rápido. Aqui, vamos, Mané. Ei! Só! Cheio! Gol! Gol! Derruba!
E como ser uma queda mais difícil de braço, a gente usa o braço para projetar.
A que fizemos agora
Foi o sotogari, de achuazade, queda de perna.
Vamos lá. Senhora Zete. Vamos lá. Ei! Abre a base. Só! Cheio! Gol! Derruba! Se tiver, não é. Se tiver proteção, a primeira coisa que eu proteger. Proteger o teu colega e proteger o seu colega. Se você machucar, vai ver!
Quando você imobiliza a pessoa com as costas no chão durante 30 segundos, equivale ao ippon, aí acaba a luta. Então, eles estão tentando aqui, só vai voltar com as costas no chão. Então, eles estão tentando virar e imobilizar o objetivo. E quando você bota dentro da guarda, não vale. Ó, aqui ele imobilizou. Se ficar
Não, você. Eu vou ver aqui. Vai. Tem outro. Você vai.
ele fala do ultimata, que é essa queda que ele faz na perna. Ele é um canhoto, é difícil ter canhoto no judô, então sempre atrapalha na hora de lutar. Então uma vantagem ser canhoto no judô, ele é canhoto, e a queda dele preferida é o ultimata.
Pessoal, vamos tirar uma foto aqui.
Bonjour, ça va?
Bonjour.
Salut,
Ça
je
va.
suis Caio Caiaça, jeune cinéaste, et je pense que c'est tout que je peux parler en français, je suis désolé. Alors, on passe en anglais?
It's okay with me, yes.
Hello there, it's really a huge pleasure being here with you, having this conversation. You can see that I'm dressed for the occasion. And
I'm impressed.
I have a lot to talk to you about film, but then briefly, just because we're here on a special occasion, you're releasing a new book. You're here with a new book, Judoka, about judo, and I read an interview where you say that both judo and cinema guided you, led your life and career with the same basic questions, the same basic principles. So I read it, but I would like to listen that from you, just so you could resume it. What are these questions?
There is a lot of questions, but I think that the main question for what I learned from judo and from cinema is that the two questions are who am I and who are the others? And the answer is the same in judo and in cinema. Judo taught me to know myself better, but also to be open to the others. And it's exactly like being a movie buff and being a cinema lover is knowing much more about yourself and especially much more about the world. And with those two keys, I think you can go ahead in life.
So you started with judo, but then suddenly in some moment cinema appeared in your life and kind of guided your future career. Could you tell me what was that moment when you realized, oh, cinema, that's the thing, that's the big spark in my life?
The kind of childhood I had was that it was normal to love sports, football in the street with friends, or judo. And I think as well that when you are very young, you love cinema. But little by little, at the adolescence, you go to be much more going into the cinéma d'auteur, into certain forms of films. And it's exactly what happened to me around the age of 16, 17. Little by little, cinema became something important in my life. Judo was still important in my life. I became a judo teacher. But when I really started after my thesis at the university about the social history of cinema, little by little I started to work in cinema. So I started to live far away my whole life in judo. And one day, recently, after maybe, I don't know, 25 years without practicing judo, judo came back to my life. And I was just surprised how judo, I knew it was important for me, but how judo was so important. And I think that because when I was a teenager, I was doing the both things, cinema and judo. as an adult now, I'm happy that judo came back in my life.
Wonderful. So you're talking about being a film buff, a film lover, and I consider myself a nostalgic film lover since I was born. And you were born in Lyon, with the Lumière, where they started, where they created and changed the world in that way. And I have to tell you, the film it did, Lumière, l'aventure commence. As a film lover, it's really like diving into pure magic. How you present those images, how you introduce that magic to new generations, and I saw here many young people watching those films for the first time in the big screen with that visual quality. So personally, I have to thank you for doing this.
No, don't thank me, thank the Lumière, because this film is not a film directed by me, it's a film made by the Lumière films. And you're right, it was the first time that after 1 century, the Lumière films came back on the big screen. Because the Lumière brothers had their own cinema all over the world, which is also very important. But then, after 1905, of course, they said that what they had to do in cinema was done. And except several events in the 30s or in the 50s or 60s with Jean-Luc Godard or Henri Langlois, the French Cinematheque, it was very hard to watch films, to watch Lumière films. And so as I am in charge, we are in charge, we decided to restore the film. And of course I knew that the film were incredible, but I had to convince people that much better than being an inventor, Lumière was a filmmaker. And he was maybe the last inventor and the first filmmaker. And as a movie buff, I was much more interested in explaining why those films are great than Lumière is the inventor of Thomas Edison or Muybridge or Émile Reynaud or Skladanowski or whoever. No, with Lumière, cinéma starts, l'aventure commence.
And we here, nous sommes ici, it's like in Rio, it's like a temple, a celebration of watching films together. And in this documentary, in many interviews, you said that Edison had that thing of the individual experience, and Lumière wanted the full crowd place in a dark room with a lot of people. And you said something quite curious. You said in an interview that for you the cinematic experience was not about going to the movies with friends or with family. It was about going sometimes by yourself and watching something new with strangers, with people you don't know, to share that experience. We're here in a place that celebrates that. Just yesterday we're doing a Scorsese screening retrospective. Just yesterday we screened in a midnight movies After Hours, the film that gave him the award of Best Director in Cannes '85. But my question is, you're here in Rio now, I imagine that you travel a lot around the world. Do you usually go to film screenings in all the cinemas around the world just to have these shared experiences with new audiences?
Yes, and it's also something which drives me back to judo. When I was young, 20s, as a movie buff and as a judoka, I used to do both. Traveling in foreign country, I used to go and see what clubs of judo where they were, and practicing judo with people in Africa, in Asia, and the same with cinema. And I'm quite moved to be here and to see that the dream of Lumière, which is also the dream of all the movie buffs all over the world, is still going ahead. And I think that there is no danger, even during the pandemic, that cinema could die. Cinema as a form of creation, as a form of telling story, won't die, never.
No.
But cinema in cinemas, that is maybe much more in danger. And to me, it's not, because I think that if we fight, if we do what we have to do with education of the new generation and so on, I'm sure that it will survive. And by the way, talking about Scorsese, he just did a film for a platform financed by Apple. This film is making a lot of money all over the world in cinemas. So the idea of, in this capitalistic society of cinema, will be maybe saved by the idea of getting money. So it's sure that it's a social moment and a pleasure to be here and to be in a screening room watching. François Truffaut used to say that, of course, the bigger the screen is and the most important number of things you can see on the screen. And it's really totally different. And I'm confident, but we have to fight.
Yeah, I have even a personal note to say on that, because you see that I'm wearing this Cannes shirt, and it's the 7th edition in 2017. I went there with a short film, so I could have this Cannes experience. And I believe it was the only year where you accepted Netflix movies in the official competition. I was there experiencing that.
Mm-hmm.
But even movies that were on streamings, even old classics that people could watch on DVDs or in a click in a TV, we do special screenings here, and it's always crowded. People like this experience of watching in big screen.
What we did in 2017 was really to put the dialogue with Netflix in Cannes. And Netflix has one of the best platforms. And I'm not at all against the platforms. I just wanted to show that those guys of Netflix are movie buff. They want to do films. Of course, they do a lot of things, documentaries and TV series and so on. But it's something very important. The money of those companies is very important for creation. But in Lyon too, at the Lumière Institute, we used to screen Netflix film in the big screen. And then I asked people to raise their hand for those who have seen or not the movie. And very often it's half of the theater. So I asked them, why you're here if you already saw the film? And they say, we saw the film on the small screen. We want to see it again in the big screen. And that is the whole difference. And that's why it's two different things. It's not the same thing and one will disappear. Cinema, like rock concert in a stadium, you can't imitate that. But we have to also to teach that to the young generation, because the young generation, they go deeply in the horror of the small screen in watching film in a smartphone.
Exactly. And we have here present with us a big fighter to that purpose, to screening in big cinema screens. I'm going to quote the Avengers, if you allow me. They say in a scene, oh, we have a Hulk. Here we have a Cavi. Cavi is a bridge between young generations of filmmakers doing their first features like myself and veterans that want to come back on set. This guy is the bridge, and he is active as a producer. He makes things happen, and he's a judoka. He was how can I say, in the Olympics, he was an Olympic athlete. He lived judo, and he's here now with you. That's very, a match. That's beautiful. So I know that he read your book twice. He's really dedicated in the studies of this sport, and he has some questions for you. So this is the moment to introduce Cavi Borges, the timeless fighter. You can, vem por aqui, come together with us. He's a tireless fighter for independent film in Rio, in Brazil. So please, now is your moment.
Really, I want to know about when you describe the Kodokan. I went to Kodokan when I was 13 years old and visited the museum of Jigoro Kano. And when you write in your book, I remember my past, and I visited Japan 5 times to training. And stay in the Kodokan and visit the university, the policeman, judo. And I saw in your book about the memories. Memories very important. In judo, you love our masters, our senseis, and you bring this to the cinema too. When you study Lumiere's presents, make the Cannes classics, and you know my English is very bad. You think maybe you learn in judo, that's the referenciar,
Reference.
Yes, our masters, and bring to the cinema. You see are similar?
Yes, I think that I've learned first to pay respect to the past in judo. And it's really something which I think is still very important, because we live, I don't know for Brazil, but especially in Europe, for France, we live in a sort of modern society, capitalistic society, where only the present and the future are important. And I think the past is important. But the past is not modern, so that's why the press and a lot of people, they don't want to pay attention to the past. How can we live without knowing the past? And it was true for me in judo. In judo, it was the first on the tatami to respect the whole people around, because the whole people had their own history, which was much more important than the history of us as we were a child. So having a respect for the past and for the people who made the past was obvious as a judoka. And to me, it's obvious as a citizen, and also in cinema, because I'm a movie buff. I'm in charge of the Lumière Institute, which is an archive, a cinematheque. How can we talk about cinema without being able to talk about Orson Welles or Eisenstein or Fritz Lang or Jean-Luc Godard or of a lot of people? So it's strange, because we have to fight to explain that. It's not normal. It must be obvious that for the young generation, the whole generation, are important. I'm not pessimistic, I think, and we are here in this kind of place. And if we look to the platforms, we can see also that there is a lot of period films, of documentary about history of cinema too, history of sports too. We still have a lack of a documentary about judo, but so I'm not pessimistic. I think that little by little this kind of thing will come back.
And when you work in the Cannes, presents all the screenings, do you think your judo body, judo memories of your body help you in some moments? What do you think about today, what judo help you to work in life?
Well, people used to say that when I'm at the top of the red carpet, I'm like that, like a judoka. But I think people used to say about me that I'm quite comfortable in talking to 2,000 people on the side of Martin Scorsese or Tom Cruise or Quentin Tarantino. It's true. Not that I'm comfortable, but I've learned to talk in public to people on the tatami.
Like a judo competition.
Like a judo competition. First in doing competition, but not only. When your first lesson of judo, when you start to be a teacher, and in judo we start very young, because the teacher will ask you to make the training and first, and so you have to convince black belt people, and you have to be very strong and very good. You have to have a good voice in order to have people listen to you. And in a way, I've learned that on the tatami, and it is still very useful for me in Cannes and in cinema in general.
Okay.
Agora, so now I'll just ask you a final question, because I don't want to hold you for lunch, and I'll ask you to get just a little closer so we can have you in the center of the frame. Is he in the center? Tá no centro agora? Tá bem aí? Okay. Agora eu quero foco, destaque nele. All eyes on you. Because Brazil, we are in Rio now, Brazil has a long history in film. We got a Palme d'Or, we have many directors from the old generations and nowadays presenting films. So in a quite personal question, I would like to know about a personal favorite of yours. When we're talking about Brazilian film, a personal favorite.
First of all, I would say that I will not mention any contemporary name, because I don't want people to be jealous. Why did he mention this name and not that name? But last year we had a wonderful documentary about Nelson Pereira dos Santos, and it was an incredible documentary, because it was his history, it was history of cinema and history of Brazil, which to me is history of the part of the world. And if also I could mention the documentary of Kleber Mendonça do Filho, it's also because Kleber succeeded to talk about Recife, to tell the story of a city through his own intimate story and through theaters and movie theaters. And I think that it's maybe why we love judo, we love sports, and we love culture and cinema. It's because it's our story. And we can tell the story of the world through cinema, not cinema as an art, but cinema as a social practice. And as Exactamente, we can exactly tell the same story through the stadium of football, or for us, the history of judo. And I think that those feelings are inside me, and I wrote that book in order to give it to some other people. And the best compliment Kavi gave me was that my story was his story. And if you can ask to the movie buff around the world, it's exactly the same. You are the kind of movie buff. I can exactly know the kind of taste you have, the kind of experience you had with some films, with some books, with some posters. It's not a fetishism. It's really who we are, and who I have a lot of friends in rock and roll music. They think the same. And the addition of the passion for football, cycling, and judo, or for cinema, painting, literature, or music, this is the addition of all of that makes culture and makes who we are. And it's very important. How can a government can know the soul of his own people without knowing what sport is, what culture is? And I think that because we are there, I was involved in judo, I'm involved now in culture and cinema, and it's still the same fight, but also the same pleasure.
Well, I had a funny question, but I can add nothing to this line that you just said. So I want to thank you a lot for your presence, for your kindness on sharing those experiences and the things that made you and now are able to make us and inspire us. So vive le cinéma, vive le judo, vive Thierry.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Merci beaucoup.
And I'll just ask for a picture. Just pass on a photo here.
Picture.
A picture, and if you allow me, I'll bring an old friend of mine. This is a filmmaker from Brazil,
Good,
and
good,
he's here.
good.
So if he's around, why not?
And you can even, this is a classic too.
We, all of them all together.
Vamos esperar um escalhão, né? Escorçado.
Voilà.